An unplanned grid power outage strikes in a fraction of a second. For a critical facility relying on a constant flow of electricity, surviving that sudden disconnection requires physical preparation well before the fault occurs. To manage this, we rely on active microgrids. These local networks must continuously balance internal distributed energy resources, like local generators and batteries, while simultaneously buying and selling power in the day-ahead and real-time electricity markets to minimize costs. That balancing act becomes highly complex when we integrate renewable energy. Wind and solar outputs naturally fluctuate, injecting a continuous stream of variable data into the microgrid's market calculations. This variable generation sits in direct conflict with the absolute, non-negotiable power requirements of critical loads. Continuous industrial melting operations or life-saving medical infrastructure cannot tolerate even momentary voltage drops or curtailments. The core vulnerability in this dynamic system is unintentional islanding. This occurs when the main utility grid fails, due to extreme weather, cyber attacks, or supply shortages, forcing the microgrid to abruptly sever its connection and survive solely on its internal assets. When faced with the severe uncertainty of unplanned outages, power system engineers often default to a standard operational reflex. They attempt to model the risk by generating thousands of probabilistic scenarios. Relying on market-driven probability to protect life-critical infrastructure during unpredictable blackouts creates a hidden operational risk. The math designed to maximize profit is mathematically hostile to extreme case survival. To understand why, we have to look at how traditional stochastic programming actually works. Its primary objective function is to maximize the expected profit across a defined distribution of possible futures. This tree maps probable market and demand futures. Routine variables like wind fluctuations quickly generate hundreds of weighted branches, but introducing a rare, unplanned outage triggers scenario dilution. Because stochastic models rely on averages, the outage's mathematical weight shrinks to zero as the tree grows. The optimization algorithm calculates that 99% of the time, the macrogrid will remain connected. To minimize total system costs, the solver makes the logical choice to shut down expensive local generators and buy cheaper power from the main grid. But probability is not a physical shield. When that 1% islanding event actually occurs in reality, the local generators are completely offline, and the system lacks the rotational inertia to keep the critical loads powered. Increasing the fidelity of a probabilistic model actively endangers the hospital. Stochastic dilution mathematically incentivizes the system to ignore rare, fatal events in favor of routine, high-probability profits. The alternative to stochastic dilution is adaptive robust optimization, or ARO. Instead of averaging probabilities across thousands of scenarios, ARO bounds the worst-case scenario and forces the system to prepare for it. This paper proposes a customized stochastic adaptive robust optimization framework. It operates in 3 layers. The outer layer calculates the here and now decisions, committing the physical generators and scheduling day-ahead market bits. The middle layer acts as an internal adversary. Its sole mathematical purpose is to find the worst possible time and duration for an unintentional islanding event, actively testing the system's defenses. The inner reactive layer calculates the wait-and-see decisions. Given the worst-case attack identified in Level 2, it determines the optimal real-time dispatch of batteries and flexible loads to keep the hospital running. To prevent the Level 2 attacker from simply simulating an infinite, impossible blackout, it is constrained by an uncertainty budget. This budget dictates exactly how many hours of outage the attacker is allowed to inflict on the model. Standard ARO approaches contain a critical flaw. They distribute this uncertainty budget uniformly. The math assumes an unplanned outage is equally likely to occur at 3 a.m. as it is at 6 p.m. This histogram charts historical load curtailment data from a real distribution grid. Physical grid failures do not occur uniformly. They follow pronounced time-dependent patterns, with massive spikes clustering tightly around peak evening demand periods. If we overlay a uniform uncertainty budget onto this real-world data, the mismatch becomes obvious. The flat limit misrepresents the underlying physical risk. A uniform uncertainty budget is operationally toxic. It heavily overprotects the low-risk night hours, which limits the microgrid's ability to earn market profits, while leaving the historically volatile peak hours dangerously underprotected against extended blackouts. To resolve this, the researchers architected a customized uncertainty budget, or CUB. The first step is to analyze the grid's specific history and convert raw curtailment counts into an hourly probability ratio. We establish exactly when outages usually happen and when they don't. This equation visualizes the mechanism used to assign the new budget: inverse probability weighting. During a historically common peak hour, an outage is highly likely, but because it's peak demand, the microgrid's generators are likely already running to capture market prices. The system is naturally stressed and prepared, so the algorithm assigns it a lower artificial robust weight. Conversely, an unexpected outage during a low load period is an operational blind spot. The generators are usually off. By assigning a massive CUB weight to these historically safe hours, the algorithm forces the level 2 attacker to concentrate its budget there, making the system prepare for the surprise. This creates a mathematical edge case. If a specific hour has 0 historical curtailment events, inverse weighting would attempt to divide by 0, assigning an infinite weight. To maintain mathematical stability, the framework introduces a smoothing parameter, factor F. This is an operator-defined risk calibration parameter. Factor F acts as an artificial baseline. It ensures that perfectly safe hours are treated as if they had a fractional historical curtailment, preventing zero weights and keeping the distribution balanced across the 24-hour horizon. By forcing the level 2 attacker to spend its budget where the grid historically expects it least, inverse weighting mathematically hedges against routine peak failures, while ensuring the hardware is awake for high-impact surprise blackouts. We can trace how this theoretical math controls physical hardware by reviewing the exact dispatch results generated by the column and constraint generation solver. This graph compares the expected baseline demand against the optimized actual demand in the hours leading up to an anticipated islanding event. The actual power draw is noticeably higher than the baseline. The optimizer calculates that an outage is incoming. To prepare, it commands the energy constant flexible loads to consume their daily required power early, while the main grid is still connected and prices are stable. This clears internal capacity for the impending crisis. Simultaneously, the battery energy storage system executes a synchronized charging cycle. The state of charge aggressively spikes to maximum capacity directly ahead of the calculated outage window. The most critical move happens in the level 1 unit commitment. The solver forces the expensive internal microturbine to turn on. Microturbines have strict ramp rate limits. They cannot cold start fast enough to catch the critical loads if the grid instantly drops. To prevent a hospital blackout, the turbine must be preemptively committed, spinning, and synchronized to the local grid before the failure happens. The abstract math of the customized uncertainty budget physically forces the microgrid's hardware into a preemptive defensive posture. It spends a marginal amount of money early to guarantee survival later. This table highlights the CSARO framework's performance over a 100-day horizon, tested against stochastic and deterministic baselines. By utilizing inverse probability weighting, the system achieved a 71% reduction in instances where the critical load was curtailed due to power failure. Despite operating in a highly defensive posture, total operational costs dropped by 27% compared to the deterministic approach, retaining market revenues comparable to standard stochastic scheduling. The system extracts higher resilience at a lower cost because the inverse weighting allows it to relax. It avoids being overly conservative during historically safe hours, freeing up the battery and microturbine to aggressively pursue day-ahead market profits when the risk is genuinely low. The ultimate metric of an active microgrid is its ability to protect its most vulnerable assets. Across the simulation, the framework guaranteed secure, uninterrupted operation for the critical hospital load in 98% of the tested days. When balancing market volatility against absolute physical limits, treating every hour as an equal threat wastes capital, while trusting simple probability invites catastrophic failure. True grid resilience requires looking past the expected average. It is achieved by mathematically constraining the optimization engine with the exact structural realities of historical risk.